Hi, my name is Dr. Deborah Smith, and I am an Associate Professor of Leadership Studies at Kennesaw State University. I have taught here for 13 years. Part of that time was as an adjunct professor. I've taught in the freshman seminar and senior seminar program, and then more recently in the past few years started teaching in our honors program and our leadership studies program. Did I always have a clear career path? The answer would be no. As I mentioned before, with that psychology degree, didn't know what I was going to do with that, but God was patient and worked with me and planted all these seeds, and all those earlier experiences kind of came together to fall into the faculty career path, which is what I love and feel like that is definitely where I should be. So the importance of leadership in my current position. Probably some of the other people you've interviewed have more important sounding titles than I have. But through the leadership classes that I've taught, we've talked a lot about influence. And I really feel like everybody is capable of being a leader in whatever kind of position they are in. So some of the positions that I hold, obviously being a faculty member, I feel like I have influence over students, and I hold that responsibility very seriously and try not to abuse that privilege. I'm a mom, so I feel like I certainly have influence not only over my children, but their friends that come home with them, and even like the youth at our church in different capacities that I've worked with them. And also as the coordinator of the Leadership Studies program here, I do mentor younger faculty, so I feel like that's another place where I can be of help. Okay, who are my role models or mentors in leadership? You know, a lot of people want to like name somebody famous, like Mother Teresa. Not that I don't have anything against her, but I didn't know her. The people that I tend to look to are the people who are in my immediate sphere of influence. So I know you interviewed Dr. Casey earlier. She is definitely one of my role models or mentors in leadership because she is a person of character and integrity, and she's always modeled and demonstrated that. I also think about people at my church, women who are older than me, who just are very consistent in their walk with the Lord, and no matter what their circumstances are, that doesn't deviate, and those are people that I look to. Future of women in leadership. Oh, that we can know the future. I don't know, and I'm actually doing a research study right now with another colleague here at KSU and a student, and we are looking at that. We are replicating a study that was done in Australia 10 years ago, kind of looking at the future and the current status of women in leadership. And we've just finished analyzing the results, and one thing that came out is that women, so compared to 10 years ago with this particular study, are assuming leadership roles in more areas of their lives. So that's one difference. One thing that hasn't changed is women still struggle more so than their male counterparts with balance. Still trying to figure out the whole home, work, church, whatever, volunteering in the community. So that seems to be an issue that we're always struggling with. Like 10 years ago, it was really more about work. They didn't really think about themselves as being leaders in the community. Once I did a study by Henry Blackaby. I think the subtitle is Discerning God's Will for Your Life. And that study really stuck with me because he talked about what we tend to do when we want to make a decision is run to our friends, call our mom, do all the things that we normally do. But the ideal is that you would pray. Don't even tell people about whatever decision is that you need to make. Go to God first, go to God only. And that's all you do for like 2 weeks. And just wait, because if you knock, he will answer. So book recommendations, well, classic favorite is John Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. If you go to a bookstore and look at the leadership section, you can have about 400 choices. Top 10 this, do that. And I like his approach because I know he's a Christian, and so to me that's the more important lens. Lastly, advice and encouragement for women who are struggling to fulfill their calling. I think I would go back to what I said earlier about the Henry Blackaby kind of approach, to just tune out the voices of others and learn to listen to God's voice, which is often that still, small, quiet voice. And we don't hear it if we're not still long enough, if we don't sit down, if we're so caught up in our whirlwind of activities, even if they're good things that we're doing. And I feel like if it's really something that God would have you do, you're going to be affirmed by others. That is one nice little perk about getting older, is you can look back and see how all those pieces of the puzzle kind of fit together, and even the bad things. You know, Romans 8:28, that he works all things together for good for those who love him, not just for everybody, but those who love him. You can see how those periods of darkness or depression or whatever it was can fit together in kind of the overall picture of what God's purpose is for you.
My name is Bonnie Pinkston. I'm 39 years old. First of all, I'm a wife, and second of all, I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 4 children. I teach 3 grades, 2nd, 4th, and 6th, and I run a daycare for 1 out of my home, 2-year-old. Those are actually my children. My passions are creative movement. I'm the leader of a creative movement team at my church. My husband and I also co-teach a Sunday school class at our church. We've been doing that for about a year now, and that's a real blessing. There was not an aha moment that made me think I'm going to be in Christian ministry. When I first got saved, I knew that I wanted to be used of God. I felt like that was the highest calling, was to be used of God in whatever area He wanted me in. But on my own, I felt like the most important area that I could fulfill would be to be a pastor's wife. And that to me was ministry. So I really glorified that position, although that's a really high calling. That's what I sought after in my own flesh. And I actually almost became a pastor's wife more than once. But God saw fit to place me elsewhere, and now that I am where I am and I have my family and my children, I can see that that was not the best calling for me. That's what I wanted at the time. But when I yielded to Him and took a step back and allowed Him to really take control and not pursue that direction, He placed me where I needed to be. There are 2 ladies that have been an influence in my life. One I met in my early 20s. She was a pastor's wife, and she came into work one day, and where I was working, her husband worked where I worked. We both worked for a parachurch organization, and she came in, and I called for her husband to come to the lobby and meet her, and they had their daughter with them. And the way that I saw her interact with her daughter, it still touches me today. This was 19 years ago. The way that I saw her bless her husband when he walked in the room, her graciousness, she was genteel, she was considerate. I just remember being drawn to this woman from that moment. That was the first time I laid eyes on her, and I was so drawn to her. I really didn't have any role models in my life. My mother at the time was struggling with her own issues, and so I actually got to know the lady, and doors opened for me to be able to go eat dinner with her a few times and spend some time with her family, and she poured into me. And I haven't talked to her in almost 10 years, but she's the first one I think of when I think of a role model. And now that I'm 39 years old, I immediately think of who's in my life right now is a mother of 12, homeschooling mom, lives down the street from me. 2 of her children are married, but there are several other children of hers that come in and out of our home. I see their manners and their behavior, and I know that this woman is incredibly organized, and she's just been a real role model for me to be able to see, as she's at least 10 years ahead of me, and to see the fruit that she's bearing in her children and her family. And so I think of her and, wow, Mrs. So-and-so, she's who I think of when I want to accomplish a certain task or do things right. When sharing my life or calling with other women, you know, we as women like to talk to each other. We are fulfilled in our relationships with other women. We get more out of our relationships with other women than men get out with other men. I picture women cooking together in the kitchen and pastimes and things like that. And so we share what our heart is. And right now I'm in a place where most of my heart is poured into my children. So we talk about our children. As far as our ministry or our calling, I try not to talk about my calling with other women. I really just hope that they see it or that they'll witness it, maybe in an opportunity on a Sunday morning. I might call someone for prayer support, but if all of a sudden someone sees me on stage or discovers that I'm leading the class that morning, you really try not to say a lot about it because you don't want attention drawn to yourself. You really want it drawn to the Lord ultimately. And I hope that my calling and my leadership comes out without me having to say anything about it. I would say that if a woman is struggling to fulfill her calling, she is either misguided, misdirected, or looking inward instead of outward. If you will take whatever it is you want to hold on to and open your hand and give it up, God will fill it with so much more than you could have imagined. Going back to my example in the beginning, how I thought I wanted to be a pastor's wife, and now I look back and say, wow, I wasn't created for that role, but this is what I was created for, and I can blossom and grow in this role and be a blessing to others. Books I would recommend to Christian women. I think of women in 3 different stages of life, mothers, single ladies, and then just ladies in general. There's a book by Stacey Eldridge called Captivating. There's a companion book to that her husband has written for men called Wild at Heart, and I recommend that book as well to understand the men in your life, whether it's a son or a husband or a friend. But Captivating for the woman truly speaks about the beauty of a woman and God's relationship with her. For the single mom, there's a book by an author named Anne Kiemel Anderson, and it's called Yes, and it says yes to being single. And that book really ministered to me when I wanted to be married and I was single. And it's a great encouraging book. And then for moms who need some advice with their children, the best book that I'm reading right now is by John Roseman. Actually has several books out. All of them are wonderful, wonderful advice.
I'm Laura Watkins, and I'm the music director of Milford Church of God. And I am a mother of a wonderful daughter who is 6 years old. I am also a wife to my husband, Brian. I went to Lee University, graduated there. That was in Cleveland, Tennessee. Graduated there with a communications, public relations degree. It's been great. I came here to Milford and had no idea that I'd become the music director when I first walked in, but God knows exactly what He's doing. Worship, the best way that I can describe worship for me is it's who I am. It's everything about me. It's not only a part of my talent, it's not only a part of the gift that God has given me, but it also just is every fiber of my being. I love every aspect of worship. I love the intimacy of certain worship. I love the excitement of other types of worship. I love to worship God, and to me there's no better feeling in the world, looking selfishly, than when I'm worshiping Him and in His presence. Role models for me, I know the biggest one in leadership was my choir director at Lee University. Dr. Horton was his name, and he really taught me everything about worship. He was amazing. He was very compassionate about things and just a great leader all around. And his wife, Virginia Horton, was our mother, basically. She was just always there. Everything that I do today, as far as leadership, decisions I make, the way I run practices, the way I have worship time in our worship, our personal, just music worship time with just the choir. It's all because of him and what he poured into us and really just showed us how to effectively make our worship as effective as possible. Another role model honestly is Carol Cimbala with the Brooklyn Tabernacle Choir. I love their music. First of all, they wear me out. But the fact that, like me, very nervously, I don't read music and I don't know how to write music. And neither does she to this day, but she has written hundreds of songs and has won Grammys and Dove Awards because she just lets God use her. And to me, that's just someone that and what she has built and done, and the people's lives that she has impacted, just by going out on a limb and saying yes, even though she didn't feel like she was equipped. God equipped her. Decision making was never a strong point, and I still struggle with being firm and sticking to decisions. Definitely having a child, my daughter, really kind of helped me with decision making, and also helped me to make decisions with what I do, as far as even down to the simplest thing of what songs to choose, and how things are run. She has really helped me be able to just, I guess for lack of time, when in the middle of a 6-year-old having an issue, you got to make a quick decision. And she really helped me with that. Of course, I go back to the verse where it says, trust in the Lord. When I'm up against a rock and a hard place, I trust Him and know that He's going to direct my path. In leadership, you're always going to come up against hard moments where hard decisions have to be made. And doing this has really helped me know how to do those in ways where it's more understanding, it's understood that this is not, I'm not making this decision to hurt you or to upset the balance or to upset things or whatever, but this is how I feel. And then communicating then makes decisions, because you're communicating and you're opening the doors, and then it's almost like the decision happens. And I was never really good at that. I was awful. I couldn't even decide. I was tide or gain. I don't know. They both smell great. I think they both clean. I don't know. There we go. I mean, that's just the way I was. But obviously, when you're in a leadership position, you have to make decisions. And God has really helped me be able to not be afraid of decision making. And I think that's really what most people have the problem with decision making, is they're afraid of, what if I make the wrong one? Well, you have to trust yourself and trust that God's put you in this position because He's already equipped you, and that you are good at what you do, and have a little faith in yourself as well, and be confident. Without a doubt, the life-changing moment for me was when I lost my mom. I will never be able to talk about it without getting choked up, so bear with me. But it by far was the moment in my life where I came to a fork in the road. And God said, you can keep doing what you're doing, and that's fine, and you'll get to heaven like that. You'll get to heaven the way you're going. Or you can go this way, and you can see all that I have for you. It's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require work. And I was literally at a moment where I was like, I have served you. My mother has done nothing but serve you. And it was tough. She lived her life to me as a true leader because she served everyone she was around. She was so serving and a servant, and that just made her stand out, and people want to be around her. And that was huge. That was my life-changing, by far, moment. And I've never been the same since. Amazing grace, how the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Casey. I am currently a department chair at Kennesaw State University. I take very seriously the mentoring of my female faculty so that I can pass along the gift that I was given. I feel like if I had to sum up my leadership philosophy in a sentence or two, it would be that I find the best person for the job. In other words, the fit issue. Find someone who is fully right for a position, and then I remove the obstacles for them to be successful and give them the tools that they need to do the job that they are hired to do. And if I could say that, that's probably my best strength. I have a few strengths, but that might be one of them. One of the programs that I'm involved here on campus, and one which bears my name actually, is the King Casey Women's Leadership Program. This is one of the programs that is run out of the Center for Student Leadership. The program that is our namesake is a mentoring program. Now it's undergone several iterations, but the core philosophy around which the King Casey Women's Leadership Program is built is mentoring. At its very core is the belief that every woman should be given the opportunity to partner with and engage with a mentor throughout some portion of her life. And of course, as you heard me talk about my mentor, that is really what the basis is for this program. We offer women, in hopefully small doses, interactions with leaders, women leaders on this campus, and it's an incredible, energizing and sort of emotional group. We kind of sit around a table. There's about 35 strong women leaders on this campus, and literally the King Casey participants, the student participants, get the opportunity to sort of interview us. And I say that it's not formal and it's not formulaic, but it's spontaneously questions and answer sessions with the strong women leaders on this campus. It just reminds us of why the mentoring process for a woman is probably more important than for a man, because in many ways it's been a man's world. And the fact that my name is associated with it isn't the only reason that I'm involved in it. I would be involved in it if my name were not on it, because I strongly believe that young women, as they're finding their way in their lives, in their careers, and in higher education particularly, need to be connected to someone, not to look up to and not to ask for advice, but to mentor. I believe that the future of women in leadership is unlimited. I believe that in the society that we live now, the awareness of the capability of women is larger and more open than it ever has been before. I really believe that just the fact that women far outnumber men in higher education, student-wise, but also now in faculty, and I believe we're getting close to being equal in administrative positions, I think these are all indicative signs that the future of women in leadership is just incredibly positive. And I feel like that part of the future of women in leadership is tainted by the idea or the misunderstanding of emotional leadership. I think when, and this is a generalization and I fully acknowledge that, when there are discussions about women in leadership, there is this certain lack of understanding of what emotional leadership is. It's not about tears. It's not about highs and lows. It's about bringing the feelings aspect of people's strengths and weaknesses and broader context into focus as far as their leadership is concerned. I feel like it has made me a much more empathetic and much more concerned advocate for my faculty. Even my male counterparts tell me that it is a characteristic that I have that will belie discussion in the future about the strength of women, but I believe it is one of the characteristics and traits that's going to mark women as strong leaders in the future. So I feel very optimistic about the future of women. I do believe that the future is very bright, and I believe that women are being honored and recognized in ways that hasn't ever occurred. The type of leader I am, I think, is most described by the word collaborative. I really believe that I don't lead by authority. I lead by example and by empowering others. And I think saying that is easy to do. I think that you can spout anything you want to spout, but stepping back and putting it in practice and hearing from others who you are leading is probably more validation of that. I really do strongly believe that if somebody fails in a task under my supervision, it's partly on me, because part of my responsibility as a leader is to recognize their potential for success and or failure in a particular role that I task them with, and then to adjust accordingly. I used to joke and say my best gear is reverse, because I don't have any problem reversing a direction that I originally proposed if I feel like it's best for the colleagues that I am supervising. And I really believe that's one of my strongest positive characteristics. I'm done.
My name is co-pastor Teresa Michelle Goggins of Thy Kingdom Has Come International Ministries. I am the mother of 3 daughters and the wife of 23 years of Pastor Thomas Goggins. I currently serve in a leadership position in church. I believe it's very important that women of God become faithful in ministry. We must be the 21st century leaders that God has called us to be. And we must lead by great examples. We can no longer be cop-outs and sit in the back, but we must come forth and lead by example. Would you agree, Elder?
I agree. Certainly glad to be here. My name is Minister Loretta Hill Adams, and I too am in leadership for the kingdom and in the kingdom of God. And right now in this day and time, as she said, this 21st century, women in leadership is very vital to the kingdom. We are used more and more on a daily basis.
My first role model was my mother in the home, but my mom was a great woman of God, a praying woman of God. She was the mother of 7, and I am the 7th child, so I was her youngest, but so that was one of my greatest mentors. Also, I had a great mentor in my pastor, Pastor Nathan L. Simmons, who has gone home to be with the Lord since. But just spiritually, the Bible said, know no man by the flesh, but by the Spirit. And I had a great opportunity to know this man of God by the Spirit of God that was inside of him. And he taught me, one of the greatest things he taught me was to go after God for yourself. Regardless of what's happening around you, you learn how to get to the feet of Jesus for yourself.
And I must agree, for me, it was my mother. God rest her soul. She was an awesome woman, very gracious lady. And she didn't just send us to church, she took us to church.
Amen.
And in taking us to church, we were there constantly. We lived at church. To the fact that, you know, we loved church.
Yes.
We really did, especially
Yes.
growing up. And a lot of people send their children and they don't take them. But my mother took us, and I remember her praying, the tearing services, the working with the young people, feeding other kids. When we didn't have much, she would feed them. So she was
Yes.
a great mentor to me, very gracious.
And I think you should have a strong desire to want to be successful in every area of your life. It's important that I'm successful on my job. It's important that I'm over my goals, not just meeting them. It's important that my children are making great grades in school. There are no F or C or D students in my house. It's important that my husband is happy, that he has what he needs. So we need to realize, as women of God in leadership positions in today's 21st century, that we must take that whole package and say, God, how do I take this and make it whole in every area? You must have a strong desire to be successful in every area.
That's true. And I've also learned that even in balance, there's some lopsidedness. And in lopsidedness, that means that there's an area that may need more attention
Yes.
than another area. And you've got to understand and know when, okay, I've got to kind of rock that scale just
Give a little
bit.
more there.
Give a little more.
Yeah.
A little more attention, to that particular area. And that's still balance. You might not think it is, but it's still balance, sometimes being just a little lopsided. Take care of that area. And once that area is taken, you can balance it back out and continue and further in the work.
A lot of times the challenges of mentoring is that if you could just get them to just believe, to see the greatness that's inside of them, because greatness beget greatness. So when I mentor, that means I see greatness, because that's important to me, that you understand that God has something great for you to do. Now, what does that tell us as women of God in the body of Christ? That means whatever God has assigned your hands to do,
That's right.
no one can do it but you. So I encourage you as women of God in this 21st century to answer the call. I know it seems like it's impossible. I know it seems like it's very hard. I know it seems like I can't live that way. I can't do that. Yes, you can. You can do all things through Christ that strengthens you.
And you know what's awesome about it is when he calls you, he equips you.
Yes.
He makes sure you have exactly what you need to do the assignment that he's given, even though you feel like it's a struggle, even though you feel like I can't go any further, or I don't know how, or...
Absolutely. And I believe that women in leadership, if you want to birth out vision, purpose, destiny, you must be found in a posture of prayer.
Yes.
There is no other way. If you want to birth out a company or a business or a vision that God has given you, it's through the prayer closet. It's through the prayer chamber. Integrity in ministry. Women of God, this is vital when it comes to the things of God. God wants us to be true. God wants us to be honest in everything we do. You cannot be true to the things of God when you can't even be true to your own house. You can't walk in integrity with your taxes. You can't walk in integrity with your car note. Come on now.
That's right.
You need to learn how to pay your bills on time.
Right.
All of this deals with integrity when it comes to the things of God. It seems like a lot, but that's what God is about. God is about integrity. He's a God of integrity. He's a God of order. So we must remember to always strive to walk in integrity.
I agree. And we have to remember that he sees all and he knows all. He knows when we're being hypocritical.
Yes.
And also when we're being true. Your integrity will find you out. You can't go, it will find you out. So I want to admonish the women, those who are leaders, to make sure that you are walking in the integrity of Christ.